has also made very clear that it will not compromise on the safety of ad hoc staff and other staff of the commission that suspended the Ekiti East one state constituency by-election indefinitely. And the people must, there is no guarantee on when the commission will go back to conduct this election. Because it involves planning, it involves remobilization, it also involves monies belonging to the Nigerian people. And so I believe that people must realize that violence does not pay, and the moment you engage in electoral violence,
you should give us just a moment to work on your audio. We will be back for more. We just work on audio and then we reconnect with you very shortly. Now, a former governor of Ogun State and the Director General of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Organization for the 2019 presidential election, Gbenga Daniel, and former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dimeji Bankole, have formally defected to the ruling All Progressives Congress. Now, they were presented to President Muhammadu Buhari by the caretaker and Convention Planning Committee Chairman, Governor Maimala Buni.
The defection of the two prominent politicians from Nigeria's southwest into the governing APC is in furtherance of efforts by the Maimala Buni-led caretaker committee to bolster the governing party ahead of the next general elections. Former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dimeji Bankole, and former Governor of Ogun State, Gbenga Daniel, are here to formally affirm their allegiance to the APC, as well as loyalty and support to President Muhammadu Buhari and indeed the federal government. They were accompanied to the State House by the Chairman, Progressives Governors Forum, and Governor of Kebbi State, Atiku Bagudu, and his Jigawa State counterpart, Badaru Abubakar.
Why APC? I do not think that there are too many options that we have in our country. One thing that is for sure is that the entire world is going through challenges. There are global challenges, economic challenges, health challenges. And when you are in a situation like this, as I've usually opined, we should do less of partisan contestation. All of us must come together to support whoever is in power. And what we have decided to do is to come and give our support to the president so that jointly we can continuously navigate the country. That is what it's all about.
Any reasonable human being should realize that the leadership of this country needs everyone's support at this moment. These are critical times, and we shouldn't be found wanting. This is the time to step up and support so that these decisions can be taken, executed, and owned by us as a nation. Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people will ask who stood up when these things were happening. It's every citizen's right, and all we've done is exercise it today. But our actions from now will speak for us.
The Chairman, Caretaker, and Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee of the APC, Maimala Buni, attributed the courageous decisions taken by the Southwest political bigwigs, driven by principles, to demonstration of confidence in the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari.
That shows the leadership of Mr. President is being appreciated, and what he's doing to the country, and that's why leaders of such caliber are joining the party at this critical time. We are registering and revalidating our membership, and they feel this is the right time for them to join us. And Mr. President is very happy, he's pleased, he's impressed.
Governor Maimala Buni assured them of all the rights and privileges the governing party can offer its members.
We'll take a pause now to join the CBN Monitoring Policy Committee meeting as it's unfolding right there on the network service of the NTA as we continue our discussions here in the studio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to the press briefing of our second MPC meeting for 2021. The Monetary Policy Committee met on the 22nd and the 23rd of March 2021, confronted with downside risks to the optimism for significant improvement in global output recovery in 2021. The risks stem largely from the uncertainty surrounding the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines in surmounting the new variants of the novel coronavirus, as well as speedy deployment of the vaccines across the globe. In the domestic economy, the exit from recession in the fourth quarter of 2020 brought about a renewed hope for full recovery in 2021, notwithstanding the obvious downside risks to the entire global economy. The committee appraised the developments in both the global and domestic economic and financial environments in the first quarter of 2021 and the outlook for the rest of the year. 9 members of the Monetary Policy Committee were in attendance at this meeting. Global economic environment developments. The committee noted that while vaccination against COVID-19 had gained significant grounds in economies, some emerging market and developing economies were yet to commence any form of vaccination. This development an uneven recovery to global growth as barriers to trade and the global supply chain are likely to remain in place much longer than anticipated to prevent reinfection in countries that have achieved significant vaccination and some form of herd immunity. The growing concerns associated with the efficacy of these vaccines, especially in the face of new variants of the virus, however, poses a significant threat to the overall recovery of the global economy. The broad direction of the expected rebound in global output recovery therefore varies across countries depending on the headwinds confronting individual economies. Consequently, the IMF projects a growth rate of 4.3% for advanced economies and 6.3% for the emerging and developing economies, with a global growth rate of 5.5% in 2021. The downside risks to this projection are associated with concerns that the existing vaccines being deployed may not effectively subdue the new and existing variants of the virus, and thus restrictions may remain in place which may hamper the speed of expected recovery globally. Price development across major advanced economies remain subdued, alongside the expectation that output gaps will remain negative into the medium term. In the emerging market and developing economies, price development was on average mixed, with some economies recording inflation rates that were significantly higher than those seen in the advanced economies. This was mostly due to the continued capital outflows, poor accretion to reserves, and exchange rate depreciation, which has a pass-through effect to domestic prices. In the global financial markets, conditions remain relatively stable as central banks continue to maintain expansionary monetary policy and sizable stimulus packages. The huge level of monetary and fiscal injections may heighten the risk of financial instability, especially when central banks commence adjustment of policy rates. Domestic developments. Real GDP, according to National Bureau of Statistics, recorded a growth rate of 0.11% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2020, in contrast to minus 3.62% during the third quarter of 2020 and 2.5% in the corresponding period of 2019. The fourth quarter 2020 performance was a sharp rebound in contrast to the 2 previous quarters of negative growth which were minus 3.62% in the third quarter and minus 6.1% during the second quarter. The improved performance was driven by the non-oil sector, which grew by 1.69% during the fourth quarter of 2020 from 2.51% and minus 6.05% during the third quarter and fourth quarter 2020 respectively. The major drivers were quarrying and other minerals, which grew by 48.42%, and ICT subsector, which grew by 17.64%. The oil sector, however, contracted further by minus 19.76% during the fourth quarter of 2020 from minus 13.89 and minus 6.63% during the third and second quarter of 2020, respectively. This was attributed largely to the decrease in oil production in compliance with OPEC production cut agreements. The committee noted the moderation in the manufacturing and non-manufacturing purchasing managers' indices, which, however, remained below the 50 index points in February 2021, but improved to 48.70 index points apiece compared with 44.9 and 43.3 index points respectively in January 2021. The GDP growth in the fourth quarter of 2020 and expected recovery during the first quarter of 2021 were signposted by these observed improvements in the purchasing managers' indices. The employment level index component of the manufacturing and non-manufacturing PMIs also improved moderately in February 2021 to 45.6 and 48.0 index points compared with 44.2 and 45.0 index points respectively during the previous month. The committee, however, expressed some optimism that the legacy growth headwinds attributed largely to the resurgence in the infection rate of COVID-19 pandemic may likely recede in the short to medium term as the successful deployment of the COVID-19 vaccines and the various stimulus packages to revamp the domestic economy are sustained. Committee noted with concern the continued uptick in inflationary pressures for the 18th consecutive month as headline inflation year-on-year continued on an upward trend to 17.33% at end of February 2021 from 16.47% in January 2021. This increase continued to be attributed to the increase in both food and core components of inflation, which rose to 21.79 and 12.38% in February 2021, respectively, from 20.57 and 11.85% in January 2021. This persistent uptick in food inflation, however, was the major driving factor to the uptick in headline inflation. This was due to the worsening security situation in many parts of the country, particularly the food-producing areas, where farmers faced frequent attacks by herdsmen and bandits in their farms. While the bank is intervening significantly in the agricultural sector, the rising insecurity in some food-producing areas is limiting the expected outcomes in terms of supply to the market, thus contributing to the rise in food prices. The committee further noted that the key drivers of the increase in core inflation included the hike in the price of premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly called petrol, upward adjustment in electricity tariffs, and the depreciation of our currency. The committee observed that broad money supply M3 grew marginally by 0.3% in February 2021, following a substantial growth of 13.54% in December 2020. This was driven largely by the contraction in net foreign assets The committee also noted that net domestic assets grew by 3.02% in February 2021 from 2.22% in December 2020. Banking system credit to the economy increased by 1.32% to 51.98 trillion naira in February 2021 from 51.30 trillion naira in January 2021, reflecting the ongoing broad-based monetary and fiscal stimulus to various sectors of our economy. The committee thus enjoined the bank to maintain its current drive to improve access to credit to the private sector while exploring other initiatives with the fiscal authorities to improve funding to critical sectors of the economy. Conscious of the persisting inflationary pressure, fueled largely by continued uptick in food prices, committee noted the bank's interventions to boost food production, particularly through its various agricultural programs. Other complementary measures included increase in disbursement for the dry season agricultural program to increase output, the adoption of high-yield seeds to improve productivity, and the adoption of harvested produce as a means of loan repayment, which has stemmed hoarding and the activities of middlemen and rent seekers. The establishment of the strategic grain reserves for staple crops has also helped in addressing seasonality of agricultural commodities. In terms of funding, committee noted the banks has disbursed funding under its various agricultural interventions towards improving food supply in Nigeria. Committee also noted the disbursement of 107.6 billion naira to 548,109 farmers cultivating 703,619 hectares of land between the fourth quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021 to boost dry season output in support of agricultural value chain developments. Total disbursements as at the end of February 2021 amounted to 1.487 trillion naira to date under the various agricultural programs, out of which 686.59 billion naira was disbursed under the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme and 601.75 billion naira under the Anchor Borrowers Program to 3,038,649 farmers to support food supply and dampen inflationary pressures. Under the Targeted Credit Facility, which is meant for households and very small and micro businesses, the bank has disbursed 218.16 billion naira to 475,376 beneficiaries, out of which 34% of these beneficiaries are micro, small, and medium enterprises. Under the Agricultural Small and Medium Equity Investment Scheme Program, AXMIS, 111.62 billion naira has so far been disbursed to 28,961 beneficiaries, 70% of which are in the agricultural sector of the economy. Under the Creative Industry Finance Initiatives, which is primarily targeted at our youth, 3.19 billion naira has been disbursed to 341 beneficiaries, out of which 53% of it is to the movie industry. Under the National Mass Metering Program, 33.45 billion naira has been disbursed to 9 distribution companies for the procurement of 605,852 meters, while 89.89 billion naira has been disbursed under the Nigerian Electricity Market Stabilization Facility, NEMS 2, to 11 distribution companies to improve the electricity supply industry in Nigeria. Under the 100 billion naira Healthcare Intervention Fund program, the CBN has disbursed 94.34 billion naira to 85 projects in the pharmaceutical industries, hospitals, and state governments for both brownfield and greenfield projects, mostly to expand pharmaceutical drug lines, acquire MRI and other equipment, and upgrade laboratories and other hospital services. Indeed, let me say that the CBN is still willing to even expand the facility, noting that almost the 100 billion that was set aside for this program is already been achieved. Under the 1 trillion naira manufacturing intervention stimulus, the total of 803.36 billion has been disbursed to 228 projects across various sectors in the agro-allied, mining, steel production, and packaging industries, amongst others. The monthly weighted average interbank call and open buyback OBB rates fell to 1.8 and 1.5% in February 2021 from 3.5 and 2.30% in January 2020, respectively, reflecting the continued liquidity surfeit in the banking system. The committee noted the weak performance in the equities market despite the recent increased patronage by domestic investors. The all-share index and market capitalization continued to decline due to portfolio switching from equities to fixed income securities, reflecting the perception of improved yields at the long end of the yield curve. All-share index decreased by 1.17% to 39,799.89 points on February 26, 2021 from 40,270.72 on December 31, 2020. Similarly, market capitalization fell by 1.11% to 20.82 trillion naira on February 26, 2021 from 21.06 trillion naira on December 31, 2020 over the same period. This was attributed largely to investor sell-off, which continued to cause price depreciation of large and medium capitalized stocks. The Monetary Policy Committee noted the performance of the financial soundness indicators of our deposit money banks, which showed a capital adequacy ratio of 15.2%, non-performing loans ratio of 6.3%, and liquidity ratio of 40.5% as at February 2020. As regards non-performing loans, the MPC noted that the ratio remained above the prudential benchmark of 5% and urged the bank to sustain its regulatory measures to bring it below the prudential benchmark. Committee noted with satisfaction the improvement in the level of external reserves, which stood at $36.46 billion as at the end of February 2021, compared to $34.94 billion at the end of January 2021. This reflects the recent upsurge in crude oil prices on the backdrop of the renewed optimism on the successful deployment of COVID-19 vaccines across the globe. Our outlook. The medium-term outlook for both the domestic and global economies indicates cautious optimism. This is premised on the expectation of sustained policy support and successful deployment and its effectiveness in ensuring herd immunity. Available data on forecasts for key macroeconomic variables for the Nigerian economy suggests further rebound in output growth for the rest of 2021. This is predicated on the sustained as well as additional interventions by the monetary and fiscal authorities to keep up the recovery momentum in the economy, favorable upsurge in crude oil prices, foreign exchange market stability, and successful deployment of the new COVID-19 vaccines that could further stimulate economic activities and ultimately boost output growth. Given the potential rebound in output growth, bolstered by the resumption of economic activities post-COVID-19, inflationary pressure in the economy is projected to moderate in the short to medium term. The underlying risks of the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines against known and newly emerging strains of the virus, the uncertainty that the existing vaccines could lead to herd immunity and unequal access to COVID-19 vaccines, however, are some of the headwinds that could undermine our forecast. The committee's consideration. The committee noted the moderate recovery in output growth during the fourth quarter of 2020, associated mainly to the positive impacts of the several monetary and fiscal measures implemented to reflate the economy following the negative consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. This, in the committee's consideration, provides an opportunity for further consolidation as most projections suggest substantial recovery across several economies throughout the world. However, the committee was not oblivious of the downside risks to the broad outlook for recovery in 2021 as efforts to achieve herd immunity continued to face significant headwinds. The committee welcomed the current efforts by the government and other support agencies in procuring vaccines and thus urged the quick and efficient deployment of the vaccines to support ongoing monetary and fiscal stimulus towards full recovery of the Nigerian economy in 2021 and into 2022. Members expressed concern about the unabated rising trend of domestic prices and emphasized the exigency for monetary and fiscal policy collaboration to finance productive ventures, improve aggregate supply, and push down prices. The MPC reiterated its concerns on the activities of persons and groups causing security challenges in the food-producing areas of the country, as this has contributed to the major uptick in food prices across the land. Committee thus called for a collaborative and coordinated effort by all the relevant agencies and stakeholders towards addressing the prevailing insecurity issues and social challenges. Committee also called on the government to explore the option of effective partnership with the private sector to improve funding sources necessary to address huge infrastructural financing deficit. Considering the foregoing, MPC noted that fiscal headroom remained constrained and fragile following the twin shock of the pandemic and oil price volatility and the continued buildup of public debt. MPC noted the bank's innovative efforts towards maintaining exchange rate stability. It also impressed on the management to remain focused on its drive to increase accretion to reserves, especially in its recent incentives to attract diaspora remittances into the country. Committee welcomed the relative strengthening of the money market rates compared, whether to continue to focus on